Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me for the pre-Christmas episode of Ask Away, although I don't really have anything holiday themed planned. And also the final Ask Away of the year, the final Ask Away of 2022, because in 2 weeks, when we come back to do this again, it'll be 2023. Can you believe it? 2022 is almost over already. Anyway, yes, TikTok. Thank you, Kane20C. Dana jumped on me a little earlier with the press them buttons thing. So I guess, Anyway, glad everybody could join me. Thank you all for being here. As always, I'm going to begin by answering questions from my wonderful Patreon patrons and YouTube channel members. Hi, David C. Drake. Hi, everybody. Hi, Geek. Hi, Dana. Hi, Kane. Hi, everybody. I'm going to answer patron and member questions first. So if you have something for me in the live chat, especially if you were planning on being generous and throwing in a super chat or something like that, or if you just want something, you have something that you just want to ask me or want me to see for any reason, please hold on to it until I have gotten through the patron and member questions, because I will not be paying strict attention to the chat until then. So with that in mind, oh, and Isaiah, yes, I saw that you got a car. I saw you posted about that on Facebook. That is awesome. Congratulations. That's really cool. Anyway, patron questions. And the first of the patron question comes from Oasis, who says, what is the most interesting holiday tradition that you have ever observed, be it with family, friends, or even random people on the street? Happy holidays, Steve. I wish I had a better answer for this question, because I really can't think of anything. I mean, I think part of it is that especially as an adult, I don't really do anything to observe the holidays, and I certainly don't do anything all that unique. So I don't find other people's holiday traditions terribly fascinating. Like I'm really the wrong person to ask this question, to be honest. Like I don't really yeah, I honestly I have absolutely nothing, you know. Most interesting holiday tradition that you have ever observed. I got nothing. I wish I could start the show out on a better note than that, but I honestly cannot think of a thing. Sorry. Question from Dan. Aside from Leonard Nimoy, who is the Star Trek actor that cares about or for others the most? Well, how am I supposed to know that, Dan? I don't know. I don't know what's in their hearts. I will say there several of the actors of the cast members from the sort of next gen and later era have done some really wonderful things outside of their Star Trek work. I mean, I know LeVar Burton is basically a saint. I mean, all the things he's done to promote literacy, reading Rainbow, and other things beyond that, but sort of in that same vein, I think he's fantastic. Marina Sirtis has worked with animal rescue charities a lot. Patrick Stewart has worked with animal rescue charities a lot. And of course, Patrick Stewart has also been an outspoken advocate for awareness, against domestic abuse and violence against women. He's been a wonderful ally in terms of that. Chase Masterson has done a lot of work on anti-bullying campaigns. Chase Masterson played Lita in Deep Space Nine, if you don't recognize her name right off the top of your head. But so there are a lot of Star Trek actors who have done really, really cool things that I think have helped people and done small little things to, make the world a better place. So I really can't pick one that I think is the one who cares the most or has done the most. I mean, I think Star Trek fans are lucky in that the list of Star Trek actors who are just absolute pieces of shit is way, way, way shorter than the list of Star Trek actors who seem like really great people who have used whatever celebrity and platform they have gained because of Star Trek to help people out and to try to contribute something to make the world a better place. Next question is from Michael Hanneline, who says, apparently it is scarily easy now to make deepfakes of unconsenting people due to AI advances and people selling software that allows any creep to create it easily. I've read that multiple countries are rightfully working on legislation to criminalize this sort of thing. Recently, when I heard someone mention the classic Star Trek problem of recreating people on the holodeck without permission, it got me thinking about how this used to be a quirky hypothetical, but now has a real world parallel. And we know how Trek loves to do thinly veiled Aesops about contemporary problems. Do you think this should be a focus of a modern Trek episode? What new Trek show would do it best? I feel like Strange New Worlds is suited, even though they don't have holodecks yet. I mean, that didn't stop Enterprise. Prodigy might also be good if, instead of about this specific issue, it was a more general lesson about respecting consent, an issue I think kids should be educated on much earlier. Yeah, I mean, I trust the creative teams of both Strange New Worlds and Prodigy to take this idea and do something worthwhile with it. And I do agree with you. I think it is something that a Star Trek show should do something about, because I mean, there is precedent within Star Trek. There's the, Lieutenant Barclay's first TNG episode features this, includes the idea of him creating holograms of real people without their knowledge or permission, and kind of acting out his own, secret life of Walter Mitty with them. And, so it's, the idea has been introduced before, but now with the proliferation and advancement of things like deepfakes and the concern that people can be sort of digitally impersonated without their permission, and the concern that all of that can cause, I would love to see a Strange New Worlds episode about something like that. And no, you wouldn't necessarily need to have a holodeck on the ship. You could figure out some other way to represent it in the show. I mean, it's Star Trek, it's the future. They can figure out something, that doesn't require the ship to have like a magic murder box on the ship. But yeah, I would love to see a Strange New Worlds episode about it. And you're right, Prodigy would be great too, because they could present it in a way that would be palatable and accessible to kids, and have them, gain an awareness of these kinds of issues at a younger age. I think that would be fantastic. So yeah, I would love to see a contemporary Star Trek show do an episode about, with that is an allegory for this sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely. Kier, no question, just a wish for the season. May all the gods find you well and all the demons find you not. What a lovely wish. What a lovely wish. Presumably, we're not talking about like the real asshole gods, just like the kindly, benevolent gods. May the kindly, benevolent gods find you well. That's a really nice wish. Thank you for sharing it. And I pass it back to you and to everybody watching. Black Cover 95. I enjoyed your This Is Fine video, but I confess it wasn't what I had in mind. Realistically, what sort of circumstances would cause Stuffy to say, "This is fine, I'm okay with the events that are currently unfolding, that's okay, things are going to be okay"? I imagine maybe a scandal at the Mid-Atlantic Food Bank gets uncovered, and Stuffy looks guilty due to his association. I imagine him sitting at his laptop watching the news and realizing that not only has his past charity been undermined, but even his future endeavors, due to lingering stigma. Through no fault of his own, his life has been ruined. That's when he says the line. Doesn't that sound beautifully dramatic? Unrelated question. What would his porn parody name be? I can't decide between Stiffy or Stuffer. What's hilarious is your question, and there's no way you could have possibly known this, but your question kind of is just sort of lapping at the edges of an episode concept that Dana and I have for a future Stuffy and Friends episode. Both in terms of what would Stuffy's porn name be, and like what is like a scandal that Stuffy could get involved in where he would, be pushed to the point where he would just, have to sit there and go, "This is fine." Yeah, it's something with the Mid-Atlantic Food Bank would be interesting. Something to do with politics. Maybe Stuffy has involved himself in politics in the past. Maybe he's working with some kind of politician, and a scandal breaks that he knows there's no, that he is not responsible for, but he also knows there's no way to get out of or to fix it. And, because like the "This Is Fine" meme, if to work it into like a dramatic story or even a comedy, but like a narrative story, and to have it work, like it would have to be the character is in the middle of, everything around them is just falling apart. Maybe they've tried to fix things, but it hasn't worked, and they have no options left but to just endure whatever is about to happen. And the only thing they can say is, you know what, this is fine. This is fine. You know, so it would have to be something, pretty catastrophic. But what would Stuffy? I would, now that you've said Stiffy, I think Stiffy is probably the funnier choice. But there is another one that, again, that Dana and I have discussed for an upcoming storyline in a future Stuffy and Friends episode, that I will not mention here because I don't want to give anything away, because we do still intend to make these shows at some point. But yeah, you're so close to something that we've actually been planning for a while. David Colby, your video on Andor was great and mirrors a lot of my opinions, but there's one thing about it that bothers me, and it's not your fault. Star Wars has done a really horrible job presenting the Force. Like you and everyone else says, Andor doesn't have the Force in it because it doesn't have telekinesis. But the Force is supposed to be this galaxy-pervading, life-guiding spiritual force that touches on all things. It's like if God was real and gave you magic powers. Having a Star Wars story without the Force feels a lot like, why bother writing Star Wars? And it doesn't mean you need to follow any of the beats of the more classic Star Wars movies. Knights of the Old Republic 2, which Andor references, hilariously enough, has very interesting and different takes on the Force. It just bothers me because it seems like no one, both on the creative staff or in the fandom, actually listened to a single goddamn thing Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda said. Well, okay. No obvious evidence of the Force. No Jedi, no characters that are blatantly tapping into or manipulating the Force to make things happen. How about that? Is that better? I mean, yeah, you're right. If we assume that, the Force is firmly established in other Star Wars projects as being a real thing. So yes, because Andor takes place in the Star Wars universe, the Force exists and, presumably may have some unseen, unacknowledged influence on the events. But the show's not about the Force, the show's not about people learning to use the Force or have an awareness of the Force. Like, that's not what the story is about. So you can sort of infer that the Force is there because it's Star Wars, but it doesn't really play into the story in any way that I noticed. So, but yeah, it's Star Wars, so the Force is in there somewhere, but it just isn't really part of the story. And I mean, why bother writing Star Wars if you're not going to include the Force? Well, because there's other stuff. There's other stuff in Star Wars. Like, it's not just the Force. The Force is a big part of it, sure, especially in the original trilogy, and the Jedi-centered stuff. But, that's not the only stuff. It's like saying, well, why would you write a Star Trek story if you don't see a ship going to warp drive? What's Star Trek without warp drive? Well, there's other stuff you can talk about. There's other things you can write a story about. But you're right. Yes, the Force would be there by definition because it is Star Wars. Justin DeLue, it's been 3 years since I had my big-ass wind turbines installed, and they have now paid for themselves, even on a relatively mild day. They power everything in my home. I'm now most of the way toward being an off-the-grid hermit living off rainwater and bunny corns. I like that. Given the UK's current fuel woes, it seems like a massive public investment in renewables could really help out a lot of people, and indeed the nation and world as a whole. It's one of those win-win deals. More jobs created, less dependence on fossil fuel, and better for the public and the environment. I remember you saying something about having a landlord, so your hands are probably tied, but are there any similar renewable resources available to you? Yes, I don't know about having wind turbines installed, but yeah, there are government programs that will subsidize you installing solar panels on your house. And actually, a lot of the houses in my neighborhood have solar panels on them. And at some point in the next few years, when I'm better able to afford it, when I've paid off some debts that I'm currently paying off, when I can afford it, I fully would love to have solar panels installed on this house, because I think that would be a really good thing. And not, not just better for the environment and everything, which I believe in and which I think is important, but also better for my electric bill. So yeah, here in the US, it's most of the focus on having individuals invest in renewable energy and sort of do the kind of thing you're describing doing with your wind turbine generators is focused on solar. And there are, and there are also, you can sign up with with our public utility power company. You can also opt in to like solar generated energy, so that the energy that you get, that you buy through the power company, is being made via solar panels or or wind or some other renewable resource, and not from a fossil fuel. Like you do have, at least in my area, I assume that's not unusual throughout the rest of the country, but you can opt in to have your power generated via a renewable source. So yeah, we have options like that. Science Pundit. Hey, Steve, which song is the better song or worse song if you don't care for either song, and why? And why so? Rosalita or Spirits in the Night? Thank you. I'm going to say Rosalita because I didn't even remember Spirits in the Night until you mentioned it, and I had to go back and find it and listen to it. So for that, and I like, but having reminded myself, having refreshed my memory on Spirits in the Night, it's a good song. But Rosalita is the one I remembered. I don't think either one of them is really on my like top 10 list of best Springsteen songs. But I mean, they're both fine. They're both good. Like, it's hard to think of a bad Springsteen song, Dancer in the Dark. But other than that, it's hard to think of a bad Springsteen song. So, I think they're both terrific. But yeah, Rosalita was certainly the most memorable, because that when I read the question, when I was reading it earlier this week after it had been submitted, I was like, oh, Rosalita, I know that song. Spirits in the Night, how does that go? And I had to find it. So for that reason, I think I'll go with Rosalita. Agent Meister, now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Peldor Joy, Steve, is it me or are Batman comics not what they used to be? I've read and reread stories from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and I truly believe that this period is the golden age for the Dark Knight. I loved them. It also roughly corresponds with Denny O'Neil's tenure as Batman group editor. It peaked in the 90s with writers like Dixon, Mensch, and Grant churning out stories like Nightfall, Contagion, Legacy, and Cataclysm, No Man's Land. I gave up on Batman comics in 2006, and it was like severing a limb, but the comics were just doing nothing for me, with constant crossovers, retcons, and reboots. I've tried getting back into the comics since. I liked the Snyder Capullo run, and I love Sean Gordon Murphy's White Knight universe, but for the most part, the world of Batman is sadly leaving me cold. Can you recommend any I might have missed? And what do you think of the current state of Batman comics? All the best for Christmas, and I'm looking forward to your work in 2023. Honestly, I can't give you any insight because I haven't read monthly Batman comics for probably about as long as you haven't. I got out of them around the same time. It's funny how much of what you're describing in your question mirrors my own experience. I don't know. I mean, because I haven't read very much of the comics from the last 15 or 20 years, I can't say, I can't make any kind of definitive statement about it. But I mean, I feel the same way. It's probably because those were the comics I read when I was coming of age and when I was really falling in love with the character. And of course, I think the Batman comics from the 80s and the 90s were the best too. Of course I do, because I'm in my early 40s, and those were the comics I read when I was super into comics as a kid and a teenager. So of course, those are the comics I love. And those are the ones I look back on fondly and think, oh, those were the days. And of course, I love Chuck Dixon and Alan Grant. Alan Grant's one of my favorite comic book writers ever. I loved his Batman stuff. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. I have fantastic nostalgia for, those stories. And up through the mid to late 90s was when that was really my Batman comics sweet spot. And I really haven't read a whole lot since the early 2000s. So I can't you know, like you, again, it's weird how closely we sort of parallel each other. I've read isolated bits of more recent stuff and liked some of it, and forgotten some of it. You know, now, I can't remember anything that I read and I thought, oh wow, that's rotten. Like, I think that's terrible. But I've read a lot that just didn't interest me. That was just like, oh, okay, this is what they're doing now, whatever. You know, so I mean, I can't really say. But the reasons that you cite for sort of falling out of it, with, you know, the focus on crossovers and with DC, it's the plague of DC Comics, the constant rebooting of the universe and constant tinkering with the continuity, and ooh, let's change this and hey, okay, screw it, we're doing another crisis, and like, oh god, just stop, just please, I'm begging you, just stop. Yeah, those are the same reasons why I lost interest in it too, because it's kind of like what I was talking about in the video that I put up today. The idea of, look, I don't give a shit about canon or lore or blah, blah, blah. Just tell me a good story, you know? And when it feels like the individual stories are being pushed into a secondary position ahead of connectivity and crossovers and, you know, like, and shared universe, and you have to buy everything and read everything or you won't understand anything that's going on, and everything is this huge epic thing, you know, like, that's where you lose me, because that's not what I'm here for, you know? So I can't recommend anything to you or give you any sort of opinions that, you know, about stuff that you haven't read, because it sounds like it's mostly stuff I haven't read either. Some random geek who still wishes he could give more money to Joanna. Joanna still needs help with back rent. Now the question. Steve, last Ask Away, a member of your channel, said TJ Kirk has done a 180. Pause for dramatic effect. TJ Kirk, the amazing atheist, who I bet still hates feminism, has done a 180? Reminds me of this TikTok by Francesca I want to show and share with your audience. It is less than 3 minutes. And I will show that in a second. I have it loaded in another window, but I forgot to load it into my player. So I'll read the rest of your question, then I'll play Francesca's TikTok. I'm sure you have opinions on TJ Kirk doing a 180, especially since he was one of many of the SJWs that has done takedown videos of you, because you said, come on, guys, feminism is cool. Hence all of the Steve Shives hate on the internet, the hashtag blocked by Steve Shives and all. I still haven't seen the video where TJ has done the 180, but if he's going to do a 180, what would he have to do? And what would you want him to do? Personally, just because someone says they are for Medicare for all doesn't change the fact that they're still an asshole. TJ Kirk, 180. Okay, so I need to add this video into my thing here. Here's the what I took. Yeah, okay. So get rid of that. Add source. You get to see how the sausage is made a little bit. Here we go. So this is the TikTok that Francesca made. And by the way, normally I would not do this sort of thing, but because it is Geek, my old buddy, asking, and because it is Francesca Ramsey, and I am a massive fan of hers, I am only too happy to play this on the stream. But usually I wouldn't do this sort of thing. But so this is Francesca Ramsey's TikTok.
Anti-social justice warrior era is what made them alt-right pipeline mainstream, and I will not elaborate.
I'll elaborate. I'm Francesca. I created a show for MTV called Decoded in 2015. It was all about race, pop culture, and identity. 8 seasons, over 90 episodes, and that entire time I was harassed by anti-social justice warriors on YouTube. So they would make these videos debunking my content, calling me names, sometimes using racial slurs, saying that I should unalive myself, that I should be SA'd, that I hate white people, that I hate men. They would talk about my now ex-husband, and no one did anything to protect me, but it was all under the guise of comedy. And the thinking was that they were purporting that marginalized people are lying about our experiences, we're lying about our history, we are making a big deal out of things that don't matter, and we're creating words out of thin air, which, hello, that's where words come from. Someone has to make them up. And because these videos would target people that were extremely online and in need of a community, they were able to dupe people into consuming hours worth of content that had no research or fact-based evidence at all. They were pure opinion. And as we've seen with the pandemic, a lot of people don't understand the difference between opinions and facts. And when someone makes a 40-minute video debunking a 5-minute episode of MTV Decoded filled with lies and misinformation and straw man arguments, it's impossible to debunk it yourself without getting sucked into a hole of like wasting your time and energy. I will never forget a guy made a whole music video that was animated starring a character that looked suspiciously like me. I used to have locks, and so this was a black girl with locks, and it was all about how triggered she was and how upset she was, and essentially like creating this narrative that people who advocate for social justice are actually the ones oppressing white people, oppressing men, oppressing straight people. I mean, this guy spent money to have a video produced. He went into the studio. I mean, it was well done. Like, these people were making a living off of talking about me and spreading lies and essentially creating fascism-like content. So these people were essentially primed to consume alt-right content because they were being essentially fed it through comedy videos from their favorite creators. And then the algorithm just went ahead and then continues to pump that stuff out to them. You notice it whenever you watch something innocuous, you get fed anti-feminist, anti-social commentary or social justice stuff. It's pretty insidious, and a lot of people are making money off of it. And now a lot of those people are now making progressive content. Yeah.
Anti-social.
So, yeah, I mean, what she said, like, I one of the few good things that came from me being targeted by people like that is that's the reason that I got to know Francesca. And she and I, we're not like super close. We're close enough that we can like interact on Twitter and occasionally exchange a DM here and there. But I mean, we're not like best friends or anything, but I do know her, and I know Anita, and I know a couple other people that, you know, we basically reached out to each other online because it was like, oh, hey, the people who hate you hate me. I guess we should probably know each other. It was that sort of thing. So it benefited me in that way. And also, like, my experience, my experience is very, very similar to what Francesca's was, only on a much smaller scale. And I mean, obviously I am not a marginalized person. I'm a white cis hetero dude. I was not harassed or bullied based on any of my, you know, based on my skin color or my ethnicity or my sexuality or anything like that. Whereas Francesca was, and Anita was, and Zoe Quinn was, and a lot of the other, you know, popular targets of these people were. And again, because they were higher profile than I was, they got it a hell of a lot worse than I did. So I don't want to say that, like, you know, my experience is the same as what Francesca is describing there, but it was similar. It was the same kind of thing, just on a much lower level. And yeah, so what she's describing there is exactly how it was. You know, like that rings completely true to me. And Francesca is a fantastic person and an incredibly talented person. And the fact that she has become so successful as a writer and has been able to do things and earn a good living and build a reputation as a comedian and a writer, and as someone who earns a living away from YouTube and away from this sort of thing, makes me so proud and so happy. What would TJ have to do, and what do I want him to do? The second question is easy. I don't want him to do anything. I don't give a shit what he does. It's difficult for me to imagine anything he could do that would possibly make a difference to me. And really, that's the key. They say that when you forgive someone, you do it more for yourself than for them. You know, you forgive yourself to release yourself from a burden, right? So you don't have to carry this hatred around. You don't have to carry this burden around anymore. And in my case, that's not necessary because I don't really carry around a lot of anger or hatred toward the people who harassed me. And my wife at the time and my friends and, a whole bunch of other people. I don't carry around a lot of anger about them because I don't really think about them. Like literally the only times I think about TJ Kirk are when other people mention him to me, which doesn't happen very often. So he doesn't have to do anything. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck what happens to him. If someone told me tomorrow, oh, did you hear about TJ? He fell off a skyscraper and into a wood chipper. The first thing I would do is laugh. The second thing I would do is say, ha ha, good. And then the third thing I would do is go back to Grubhub and figure out what I was ordering for lunch. Like, I don't give a shit. So there's really nothing that I want him to do or expect him to do or that he could do that would make a difference to me. As far as I know, he's not interested in forgiveness from me or from any of the other people that he and other people like him harassed in order to build a platform. As far as I know, he's not terribly repentant for any of that, or at least hasn't made any kind of gestures to anybody to try and make anything right. And even if he did, fuck him. He doesn't get that from me. So for me personally, there's nothing I want. There's nothing he could do. But in general, if he was going to do a 180 and he wanted people to take him seriously as having actually changed, taking down all those videos would be a good start. Figuring out how much money he made on all those videos that he made harassing people and either donating that money to charity or figuring out how much ballpark he made off of harassing each individual person and sending all of us a check for whatever that amount was. Now, I mean, we'd have to take TJ's word for it, and we know how trustworthy he is with money. So, you kind of have to take what you get there. But just the idea, you made a lot of money off of making a lot of people's lives miserable and whipping up a lot of hysteria and a lot of hatred and a lot of anger toward people who did nothing to deserve it. So take down the videos on your channel where you do that, work out how much money you made from that, and give that money away. Either give it to a worthy charity, donate it to Anita Sarkeesian's fucking hotline. Donate it to some group that helps people deal with online harassment. There you go. Or like I said, or work out how much money your videos attacking me made, how much money your videos attacking Anita made, how much money your videos attacking whoever made, and just send me a check for that amount or PayPal it to me. And that's the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum. And I know he's never going to do that. None of those fuckers are ever going to do that. And I'm not asking him to. And I'm not saying that it'll ever happen. But on the incredibly unlikely possibility, the hypothetical scenario that they want to prove that they have changed and that they actually feel bad about all that shit and they want to make it right and do something different and do something positive and start fresh with a clean slate, absolute bare minimum is to make it right with the people that they made all that money off the backs of. Right? Seems like it to me. And again, I'm not asking for that. I'm not expecting that. I don't think that'll ever happen. But if that's something that TJ is really interested in, well, to me, that's bare minimum. And again, it doesn't have to give it to me. He can donate it to some charity or something. But just, you got to make that right. You got to make that right. And that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. It's never even occurred to him to do that because I think whatever, quote unquote progressive thing and I haven't watched his shit. I never watched his shit to begin with. I don't know what he's on about now or whatever, but if he's trying to do kind of a pivot and do like a more left-leaning progressive thing, like you say in your question, Geek, just because you say you support Medicare for all doesn't change the fact that you're an asshole. And he's more than an asshole. He's a piece of shit. And until I see some incredibly compelling evidence convincing me otherwise, that will remain my assumption that he's a piece of shit. Robert Estes, ideas about how a battle would go between a Borg cube versus the Doomsday machine. Well, if I was writing it, it would be the Doomsday Machine. One of the Doomsday Machines would like show up at the Borg homeworld and would just obliterate the entire thing. And that would be the last time we ever see the Borg in Star Trek, if I was writing it. I think the more interesting thing, though, if you're going to try to spin some kind of a story out of it, maybe have you do it like you do it like a wrestling program. You do the first match and then you do the rematch. So the first match would be the Doomsday Machine and a Borg cube have a fight, and the Borg have never encountered the Doomsday Machine before, so the Borg cube gets completely destroyed by the Doomsday Machine. They just get blowed right the hell up, not even a fight. But then the rest of the collective has learned from that encounter because they get the information from the cube before it gets blown up. So then they are able to adapt and come up with like a new strategy. And then in the rematch, then the Borg are able to take out the Doomsday Machine. And maybe they're able to glean some kind of information about it that they can go back to the source. They can go back to to the remains of the civilization that made it and do something with that. I have no idea. But I mean, if we're just going of a, like who would win type of thing, like I said, if I was writing it, the Doomsday Machine would win, and the battle wouldn't just be between a Borg cube. It would be the Doomsday Machine and the, Unimatrix Zero or whatever the fucking homeworld of the Borg is. And it would just obliterate the entire fucking thing. And we'd never see the Borg in Star Trek again. Isaiah Taylor, imagine, Steve, that you work at a radio telescope. It's been a long day of you categorizing radio emissions from pulsars, neutron stars, X-ray sources like black holes and the like. You are also reviewing newly released data from the James Webb Telescope as you work at your desk sipping coffee out of your favorite Star Trek mug. When you hear a chime and a blinking red light on a console nearby, you are puzzled because you know this is impossible. You know that this is an alert that indicates that a signal has been detected and that it is artificial and not from Earth. Serious question. How would you react to the discovery of an alien signal directed at Earth? I'd be pretty fucking happy. I'd be pretty excited. I mean, wouldn't you? If you were not only if alien intelligence was detected, like if a signal was received, but if you were the one on duty when it came in, like if you were if ET called and you were the one who took the call, wouldn't that be pretty fucking awesome? I would be thrilled. At first I would, presumably there would have to be several layers of confirmation to make sure that this is what it is, right? Because we've seen these before, that, there's like the wow signal where people are like, oh my God. And it turned out it wasn't, aliens, it was something else. So there'd have to be several layers of confirmation to go through before you could say with confidence, holy shit, it's aliens. But once you get past that, I mean, it's the greatest discovery in the history of humanity. It's extraterrestrial life. It's extraterrestrial intelligence. They're sending out radio signals and we've detected one. This is a huge fucking deal. Like I would react with great joy, I mean, until inevitably they showed up and destroyed us all. I mean, up until then, there would be an interval where I would be like really super fucking happy. And congratulations, by the way, on the car. I saw in the chat. Congratulations on the car. And I saw the pictures of it. It looks like a cool car. Danny K. Hi, Steve. As we approach the end of 2022, I like that, and prepare ourselves for the new year, what is something that you would like to do or learn in the future? Thanks. Wishing you and yours a happy, healthy holidays. Something I would like to do or learn in the future. I don't know, maybe like learn how to do like stuff on After Effects so I can do more special effect type stuff in my videos, something like that, Yeah, I don't know. It's I mean, there's really nothing that I'm like yearning to do, that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to do that, like, yeah, probably learn how to use like learn how to do something that would augment my, you know, my ability to be creative, that would allow me to give me more tools in the toolbox that I could use to do creative stuff. That's that sort of thing. John Burns, hey Steve, hydrate. Regarding did Data have emotions all along? I've been watching fans of the Orville insist that Isaac's species is emotional and must be outfitted with an emotion chip. When we first meet Isaac, we learn that his species is xenophobic. They feel superior and they are non-emotional androids. Some don't like that. Then we find out a bunch of other things, including genocide. The thing is, science fiction draws from our own society, and maybe that unemotional character isn't something the fans want, because some of the most unemotional people in our society turn out to be terrible. Maybe because of the horrors of Nazism, maybe because powerful men today, Mark Zuckerberg is a great example, also Sheldon Cooper in The Big Bang Theory, Count Rogan, The Princess Bride. Data's concept came from Spock, but Nimoy was a very good man one can admire. But androids can also appear to be autistic. No, Data, my autistic friend, isn't genocidal. So making a video response, make Isaac emotional. Fan service. I mean, Isaac is a really interesting case because, I mean, Isaac is a great character, and the Isaac episodes and the Isaac storyline in this most recent season of the Orville was some of the best stuff they did, and the season overall I thought was excellent, and the Isaac stuff was some of the best stuff. And Isaac doesn't have the same, like, Isaac is humanoid. Isaac has 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but Isaac doesn't have a face. Like, Isaac's face is just a blank plate with 2 eyes. That's it. So he doesn't have the advantage that Data has, where Data is basically a person. You know, he has eyes and a nose and a mouth and facial expressions, and you can relate to Data the same way you would relate to any other person, because he looks like a person, just with a different skin tone. Whereas Isaac is obviously a robot. And yet, even though he's obviously a robot, and even though he is unemotional, he's an incredibly compelling character, and even a sympathetic one. And I think it just sort of goes to show what empathetic beings we are, and how our empathy allows us to engage with stories like that. Because I don't think Isaac is written to be, you know, secretly emotional. I think he's written to be what he appears to be, which is a being that doesn't feel emotions most of the time. But we connect with him because we see things in emotional terms, because we personify him even more than the show does, you know, like, and we project our feelings onto him. So if something happens to him where, if we were in that situation, we would feel lonesome, or we would feel left out, or we would feel wrongfully persecuted, or we would feel sad, or whatever, we project that onto Isaac as though that's what he is feeling. But I don't think the show is telling us that he feels that. The show is telling us he doesn't feel that. But it's still poignant to us because we know what we would feel if we were in his situation. So I think that's what's going on. And for that reason, and because I think that if that is a really powerful effect when you can evoke that in an audience, especially in a way that feels natural. And because it makes Isaac a unique character in the show, I would not want to change that. Like, I would not want to give Isaac emotions, at least not on a permanent basis. They did it very, very briefly for an episode, and the way they did it was marvelous. They did it, and it was like a temporary thing, and I thought the way they did it was very, very well. But I would not want to make Isaac emotional, you know, on a regular basis, because I think that would take away a lot of what makes the character unique and what makes the character compelling. But yeah, but Isaac is a great character. General Contact Unit Problem Child. Is this a good sci-fi show premise? In 1959, the Russians and Americans both photographed the far side of the moon and discover a giant 166-kilometer high transparent pyramid with an alien jungle inside. This results in a space race in overdrive. Both powers reach the moon by the mid-1960s and set up moon bases by the mid-1970s. By the mid-1990s, when the show would be set, most technology is ahead of our timeline as a result of the space race ramping up and continuing for decades longer. The show would focus on the Russians and Americans finally accessing the inertia, the interior, I guess is what you mean to say, the interior of the pyramid, exploring it and competing to reverse engineer any alien tech they find. What if the space race never ended is a popular premise in alternate history, but I feel like they all run into the problem. There's just not sufficient incentive to keep leaving low Earth orbit with the rocket tech that existed in the mid-20th century. My solution to that is, what if we found alien tech on the moon during the Cold War? I think that's a great premise. I think that's a great premise. Now, obviously, if you wanted to go and make a series of it, especially if you wanted to start the series at the point where humans have finally reached the pyramid and are able to go inside of it and see what's in there, like you would need, like as the writer of the show, I feel like you'd need to know what's in there. You know, you need to know what they're going to find and what that will mean. But as a starting point, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think that's a great idea. And yeah, it's a good justification for why the space race never ended, which I agree with you. You know, it does. You wouldn't want to say, well, and they just kept going for the sake of it. I mean, it would have been nice, but that's not what happened. You know, but yeah, having something like this inexplicable structure on the moon that nobody anticipated and nobody can explain. And, you know, everybody's like, well, we got to see what's in there, you know, and that being the goal, not just landing on the moon, but getting to the point where we can actually go inside this thing and figure out what it is and where it came from and what it means. I think that would be, I think that's a really cool idea. I think that is a really, really cool idea. Cranjus McBasketball. Hi, Steve. Well, it looks like James Gunn is going to reboot the DCEU mess. Now, he has said that not everyone will be recast, but it at least sounds like the main Justice League cast, minus Jason Momoa, are officially out, and it sounds like Momoa may be playing a new role rather than returning as Aquaman. James has said that we'll hear what Chapter 1 of his new plan will be in January. Outside of Superman, which characters do you want to see get some focus? Personally, I hope they cast Michael B. Jordan as Superman just to trigger the racists. You know, when that rumor, I guess, came out earlier this year, I thought that would have been cool. I think Michael B. Jordan would make a terrific Superman. Like, I would love to see a Superman movie with Michael B. Jordan playing Superman. I think that could be that there's potential there, you know. What characters do I want to see get some focus? I mean, they're doing a Blue Beetle movie, which I think technically will be before the reboot, but it sounds like they have plans for that character after that, you know, so Blue Beetle would be cool. I mean, you know, I love the extended Batman family. Like, I love Nightwing. I love Batgirl. I love the Tim Drake Robin. So it will be cool to see, you know, if they do a, you know, another version of Batman, like a mainline DCU version of Batman, other than, you know, the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson one. You know, I would love to see them, you know, let's see Nightwing and the Tim Drake Robin and Batgirl, you know, as part of the crew. That would be neat. What else? Yeah, I mean, so I think somebody on Twitter mentioned Booster Gold, and like Booster Gold is a fun character. Like that could be, and oh my God, can you imagine a Booster Gold movie written by James Gunn, or even just produced by James Gunn, like with his you know, sensibilities represented in it? I think that would be great. So, but honestly, like, you know, give me a good Superman movie, give me another good Batman movie. Like, I'm happy, you know. Give me hopefully the new Shazam movie is good. I'm that of the ones that are sort of already in the pipeline and are coming out, no matter what James Gunn and Peter Safran do. The only one I'm really like super excited about is the Shazam sequel, because I thought the first Shazam was fantastic. I still think it's one of the best of the DCEU movies. And it's certainly the best one that James Gunn had nothing to do with. So, you know, I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, you know, just stick to the basics. Give me a good Superman, give me a good Batman. If you have an idea for a good Justice League movie, that'd be great. But you know, like as I have said ad nauseum, I'm not interested in the crossovers for their own sake. I'm not demanding like, you know, epic MCU type stuff. Like just make good movies featuring the characters and build from that, you know. Lynn Kibblemom, hi Steve, happy Solstice +2, or whatever you choose to celebrate this time of year. Watching your recent Stuffy video made me wonder, how did the two of you meet? How long have you known each other? Did Stuffy ever have another name, making him the dog formerly known as? Please excuse me if this is too personal. Cheers. No, it's not too personal. The story of how Stuffy and I met in real life and the story of how Stuffy and I met in the show is pretty much the same story. And I worked it into an episode several years ago when we did a storyline that season where Stuffy left. Stuffy was in a relationship with Wilhelmina, and he took a job in Norfolk, Virginia, and he moved down there with Wilhelmina, and they for most of the season, for most of the following season, they lived there, and then eventually Stuffy came back. But when Stuffy left at the end of that season, when he left, we had a gimmick where Toby Benson had gotten as a Christmas present from one of his friends in the NSA. Toby Benson had gotten a computer program that allowed you to access your NSA file. And part of your NSA file was the NSA is spying on everybody, and they're transcribing every moment of everybody's life. So you can like look at the NSA file, and as you say something, it will be recorded in your file. Like that's how you know, minutely observed we all are. So Toby Benson got me one for Christmas. He was like, here you go. Here's your whole life. It's a transcript. It's a real-time, constantly updated transcript of your entire life, which is horrifying, you know, if you think about it. But we you know, made some jokes with it. And then near the end of the episode, my character and Stuffy have our final scene together. And I show him that I have scrolled back, you know, many years in my life transcript, and I have found the moment that we met, and I read it. You know, Stuffy and I kind of take turns reading it to each other, and it's actually a really lovely scene. I'm very proud of that scene. And basically what happened was, in the show and in real life, was that Stuffy was a stuffed dog who was living at an antique shop, and I came in as a kid and I saw him, and immediately I wanted him, but I didn't have the money with me to get him right away. So I hid him. I took Stuffy and I put him on a chair under a table in the antique shop, so nobody else would see him and take him. And then I came back the next day when I did have some money, and I found him, and he was still there, and I bought him, and I took him home, and he's been with me ever since. And I think I was maybe 10 or 11 when I did that. Slightly old for stuffed animals, but what are you going to do? And his name was Stuffy. Like he had a tag on him that said, you know, Stuffy. So I was like, that's his name is Stuffy. So I don't know if he had a name before that. I don't know what his life was like before he met me and I took him home. But that is how Stuffy and I met. And that's the actual real life story. And that's how it was portrayed in the show as well. So there you go. Stephen G. Clenard. Hey, Steve. It's more in sorrow than in anger, following the Phil Collins fiasco of your last Ask Away, that I have lost all respect for you and must end our erstwhile parasocial relationship. It seems the only way forward is for me to be rude and insulting in as petty a manner as I am capable of, until you are forced to demand, firmly but politely, that I take my Patreon dollars and childish attitude elsewhere. I'm really, if this becomes like a running gag with you, by the way, I'm really looking forward to this. Anyway, here is my opening salvo. Hey, Steve, how does it feel to always be the Buster Kincaid to Jason Harding's Captain Proton? That's weird. Did Buster have a bigger audience than Captain Proton? Oh! Oh, shit. What? Did I just turn it into a major slam on my best friend? Ah, I didn't see that coming, did you? I might be the sidekick, but he knows who brings the people. You know what I'm saying? Jason knows who brings the people. It's me. It's this right here. Actually, no, it's not this because you can't see me unless you're a patron. It's this right here. This is what brings the people, baby. Anyway, I'm seriously looking. If you're going to be childishly giving me shit for the next few of these, that's going to be great. Anyway, here's a question from Dana, who says, "Hi, Steve. Happy Friday. I think we're similar in our view of holidays. One day is much like another. We have opportunities to celebrate and enjoy every day. Why should we limit ourselves to certain ones? With that said, solstice was this week, and I'm definitely looking forward to more light in the mornings. So how about we celebrate with a story? Please tell us about the best present that you ever received for Christmas." The one that I immediately thought of when I read your question the first time was, I can't remember what age I was. I might have been maybe 9 or 10, maybe even a little younger. But it was when the first Voltron cartoon was on and was like a big deal. I think it was Voltron, Defender of the Universe. It was like, we just called it Voltron because it was the only one at the time. And all I wanted that Christmas was Voltron. And when you asked for Voltron, what you were really asking was not for one gift, but for 5. Because you had the 5 different cats that you could then put them together to make Voltron. And the cats, these very savvy toy makers, of course, you had to buy the cats all separately. The different cats that came together to form Voltron, you had to buy them all separately, and then they would fit together and they would make Voltron. So I wanted Voltron. And even at a young age as a child, I was not presumptuous or spoiled enough to expect that I was going to get all 5 that Christmas. So I asked Mom and Dad and Pap and Granny, they said, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I said, "Voltron." And I said, "Look, you just give me the big one, the main one, like the torso and the head, right? And then I can get the others, for my birthday or throughout the year if I get some money for an allowance or something. Like I can collect the rest of Voltron, piecemeal after I get the main one. I just want to give me the black one first, and then I'll get the rest of them." So, Christmas morning rolls around, and there's the big present, and I open it up, and there's the big one from Voltron. And I'm like, "Oh, sweet. Thank you so much. Thanks, Santa," or whatever. I don't know if we were still doing the Santa thing or not. But I was like, "Oh, sweet." And then, it was my turn again. I opened up another present, and there was, I can't remember, let's say the blue one of the legs for Voltron. And I opened up another one, and there was one of the other ones. And long story short, I got all 5 pieces of Voltron. So I got all of Voltron, and I was able to put them all together on that Christmas morning. And that was really cool because I had not expected to get all 5 of them. And it meant a lot to me that my family, that my parents and my grandparents had gone the extra mile and gotten all 5 pieces for me that one day, that one Christmas. And that was a hot toy that year. It was some of those Voltron parts were tough to find. So they really had to go shopping for it, and I appreciated that. And that meant a lot to me. And I had that Voltron for years. It's probably up in my dad's attic somewhere to this day. It was one of my favorite toys for a very long time. It was really, really cool. So yeah, the year I got Voltron, I think, is probably my best Christmas present. Dataport Doll, evening, Steve. I got one of my partners into Star Trek by introducing her to Prodigy. She's a Star Wars geek, and the similarities between Prodigy and the Dave Filoni shows like Rebel seem like a good bridge. In last week's episode, I found myself having to explain to her what a neural pattern was, another one of those made-up junk Trek science concepts. But I honestly feel Prodigy has done a better job with that concept than previous Trek installments, presenting it as almost a floating energy circuit inside the brain that functionally contains your soul. And in doing that, it does a better job of explaining away telepathic powers like mind melds as certain races' bioelectric signature simply being attuned to this one thing. So my question for you, Steve, is how do you see things like a neural pattern in your mind's eye? I'm assuming everyone is different as it's such a fuzzy concept over the last 60 years. Yeah, I kind of would, I would just picture like, because it was mentioned in at the end of season 1 of Picard, right? When Data, when they're in like the simulation and Data tells Picard, "Oh, when you wake up, you're going to be a robot," you know, and that's possible because they were able to map and transfer your neural patterns from your brain into the robot brain. So you're going to wake up and you're going to be a robot, Captain. Congratulations. You know, I kind of just picture like a brain. I guess like a brain with maybe some points on it connected by lines, you know. Like it's very literal. My imagination in this sense is very literal. It's like a brain with some shit drawn on it to indicate meaningful points on the brain that can then be sort of saved and lifted out and moved somewhere else. Like that kind of thing. Kind of like a mold. Yeah, that's kind of how I pictured. Like a simple wire mold put over a brain that you can then lift out and transfer, and that's transferring the neural pattern and moving the person's self from one body to another. That's kind of how I pictured it. But yeah, that Prodigy episode did a very good job with that. I agree. They the way they visualized it, I thought was quite good. Eric Paslick. I was talking Star Trek with a friend the other day, and he brought up a point that got me thinking. In the original series, it wasn't always necessary for the captain to tell anyone to raise the shields. The ship's computer did it automatically when it detected a threat. The movies and later series never did this. A crew member had to be told to do this. To me, this is something that TOS did right and later series got wrong. I know it was for dramatic purposes. I know you're not really interested in such technical aspects of Star Trek, but it made me think. So my question for you is there anything that you think earlier series got right that later series got wrong from a dramatic, story, morality, or whatever standpoint? That's a good question. I do like the idea of the crew visiting a planet that they've never been to before, that nobody has been to before, or at least that nobody from Starfleet has been to before. Because obviously, if there's people living there, people have been there before. But visiting a place that no one from their group has been to before, I really like that idea. And TNG, after the first couple of seasons, didn't do that very often. Usually the planets that the Enterprise D went to were planets that were already well known, and they were going there because Starfleet had sent them on a specific mission. And I mean, TNG was great. I love TNG, but it didn't really have the explore strange new worlds thing going for it. And the originals and the original Star Trek didn't do that every episode either. Like, I think sometimes we forget, like there were plenty of original Star Trek episodes where the Enterprise was sent someplace by Starfleet, you know, to pick up an ambassador and take them someplace, or to deliver something, and they got caught up in some kind of adventure on the way there or once they got there or whatever. Not every episode was going to a strange new world that they'd never seen before and meeting new people. Like that didn't happen nearly as often as we kind of remember that it did. But it did happen. You know, there were quite a few episodes that were like that. And I feel like that's something that should be at least a big part of a Star Trek show. It doesn't have to be the main premise. I mean, every episode doesn't need to be Starship goes to a planet that Starfleet has never visited before. But I do think that should happen regularly within the series. I think that's something that the original Star Trek did. That it's not that the later series never did it. I mean, Voyager did it a lot because they were lost in another part of the galaxy. but Voyager had lots of other problems too. But it did get that bit, and I like that. I like the idea. I've said before, one of my major points of connection with Star Trek is the fact that they are astronauts. I like being able to think of them as astronauts. I like being able to think of them as explorers. And if they go to a planet where, yeah, there's people living there, it's not like nobody's ever been there, but nobody from Earth has ever been there. Nobody from the Federation has ever been there. So it's an act of discovery. It's an act of exploration. They're going into the unknown. Like, I think that's really cool. And I think there's a lot of potential there for story and for adventure. And I do think that Star Trek shows should do that more often. And that is something that TOS did right, that later series didn't necessarily get wrong, because the other things they were doing were usually fine too. But they just didn't do that as often. And I feel like that was missing. Carlisle the Cinephile. Hey, Steve, given our mutual appreciation of the Batman mythos, I have a question for you. Which of Batman's rogues gallery do you think could have a special redemption arc? I know it's been done a few times in various versions with various characters like Harley Quinn, but are there others that you think could work that may not have been tried yet? And are there villains that you think are too unrepentantly evil for a redemption arc to work? The Joker. P.S. I'm sorry for this 11th hour question. Please don't hate me. Oh, no, you had plenty of time. There were a couple people who submitted questions after you did, so don't worry about it. I don't mind late questions as long as I have time to put them in the script. Yeah, well, the Harley Quinn cartoon on HBO Max did a funny storyline, and I think it's first season, where the Joker reformed, not because of anything he did, but because there was like an accident that kind of unjokered him and wiped his memory, and he just became a regular guy for a while. And that's really the only way I can think of to do a redemption arc for the Joker. I mean, one, do it in a comedy, so you're not supposed to take it seriously to begin with. And two, it wasn't anything the Joker did. The Joker didn't redeem himself in any way. He just got, bonked on the head and unjokered. And that's how that worked. Because otherwise, yeah, you're right. The Joker is way too, the Joker is beyond redemption. There's nothing the Joker could possibly do to make up for all the things that he's done. The Joker is, he's well beyond the moral event horizon. There's no coming back for the Joker. And it's tough to answer, because there are a lot of Batman villains where they've already done stories like this. They've done redemption arcs, or at least temporary redemption arcs, for Two-Face and for the Riddler and for Catwoman. Bane is a really interesting one, because they kind of the transition of Bane from villain into anti-hero was pretty smooth. It was similar to what they did with Venom in the Spider-Man comics, where they it's kind of like when in wrestling, when a heel starts getting cheered and they become a babyface without really doing anything different. Like, the people just start cheering them. And like with Venom and with Bane, it was like, oh, people like him, so I guess they're a good guy now, kind of. At least they're not a villain anymore. And the same thing with Harley. Like, Harley is a good example of that too. And even that was like her story arc in the most recent season of the HBO cartoon. Was she kind of realizes, I don't think I'm a villain, but I also don't think I know I'm not a hero, but I don't think I'm quite a villain anymore either. I'm something else, and that kind of became part of her story. They acknowledged that and went with that in the show. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, what are some others that could work that have not been tried yet? I mean, Mr. Freeze, Mr. Freeze has been rendered like a sympathetic villain, but I don't know if they've ever actually tried to make Mr. Freeze a good guy. But with Mr. Freeze's current backstory, or with the general backstory that he's had since the 1990s, when he was kind of rejuvenated by the animated series, and then the comics started taking cues from that, it's not that he's evil. He's a guy who, at first he's trying to save his wife. And then after that, he's kind of, acting out a a need for revenge against the society that he blames for taking his wife away from him. Like it's a fairly sympathetic motivation. And I feel like that's, I mean, certainly doesn't seem irredeemable. And you know, going back to an earlier question, I haven't read Batman comics for many years, so for all I know, they've done a Mr. Freeze redemption arc too, and I just didn't read it. So, but that's the one that comes to mind for me. Or also, actually, you know what? It reminds me of the video that Dana and I did recently about mental health in Batman stories, and the animated series episode about the rehabilitation of the ventriloquist of Arnold Wesker, you know, and how he's able to eventually free himself of Scarface and become a law-abiding citizen because he no longer is subject to the whims of the little gangster puppet, you know, something like that. Jacob Monroe. Hello, Steve. Happy holidays. Since we're about to get blasted by a winter storm, what kind of coffee do you like to drink on cold days? Everyone, please stay safe. Yes, absolutely. It is. What is it right here, right now? As I sit here in Hagerstown, Maryland, at 7:11 p.m., it is 4 degrees outside. So if you are subject to this horrible cold snap, please be safe. Please be careful. If you do have to go out, please take precautions. Please dress warmly. All of that. What kind of coffee do I like to drink on cold days? Black and hot and plentiful. That is my favorite kind of coffee, black and hot, and keep it coming. And if I'm feeling, if I want something particularly cozy, if I'm like curled up on the couch and I'm about to watch something on TV and I want a nice hot drink and I want that to be coffee, sometimes I will treat myself and I'll have my black coffee and I'll take like some instant, you know, hot chocolate mix and I'll mix that in with it and stir it up so I have like a chocolate coffee. But that's on rare occasions when I feel I've earned a treat, or I am desirous of a treat. Usually a nice steaming hot cup of black coffee is all I need. Shazy. Hi, Steve. Right now in Canada, we have the government that is mandating public service employees to return to the office after 2.5 years of being able to work from home. I personally am against this mandate because having the most amount of people work from home as possible has many social benefits, such as improved work-life balance, fewer GHG emissions, and slowing the spread of pathogens. Where do you stand on this issue? Thanks and happy holidays. I'm right there with you. I think if your job can be done at home, I don't see why you shouldn't be allowed to do that job at home. Like, I really do not get the argument against it. If you're able to do your job at home in a way that is just as effective as it would be if you were doing it in the office, why do you have to come to the office? Like, what is the reason for that? I don't understand it. I don't understand. I mean, I understand it from maybe the management point of view, because they like being in control and they like feeling like, they're all in the office and we can tell them what to do and we can look over their shoulder and we can make sure they're doing what they're supposed to, and, you know, we can justify our jobs, right? But if the point is, let's go about the business of the company, whatever that is, and let's allow everybody to do their jobs, whatever they are. You know, if that can be done successfully with people working from home, I see no reason for them not to do it. I mean, of course, there are certain jobs where you can't do that. If you're working like, you know, if you have a job that involves some kind of public interface and you need to have a way that members of the public can come in and interact with people in person, then yes, not everybody can work from home, but all of those people who can work from home, why wouldn't they be allowed to do that? I have never heard a reason why, if the job can be done effectively from home, why are they required to go into an office if they don't want to? And they don't have to, you know, in terms of doing the job. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. And finally, last question from Matt L. Honestly, I forget if I asked something already or not, but if not, here it is. What are your thoughts on dogs? Favorite dog breed? A month ago, I became a first-time dog owner and got a 10-year-old Chihuahua from a local shelter. He's a pretty good boy overall and just likes to snuggle most of the time. What kinds of dogs or other pets have you had in the past? Well, of course, most recently I had my cat, Audie, who lived with my wife and I, and then stayed with my ex-wife when my wife and I split up. But Audie was our cat for 16 years, and she just passed away earlier this year. And really, before Audie, the only other proper pet that I had was my dog, Star, who I had from for about 16 years, from roughly age 5 to age 21. And she was a black lab, and I named her Star because she was all black except right on her chest, right below her neck, she had one white spot in the middle of all black. And so that was the Star. So she was Star. And she was a wonderful dog. I loved her so much. She was a great dog. And, I mean, yeah, I love animals. I love cats. I love dogs. Actually, no, I take that back. I did have a pet. After I moved out of my, after I moved out of my parents' house, I had a rabbit, named Cole, who was a black rabbit. And I sort of gave him to my mom, and he became my mom's rabbit. Yeah, I remember. So Cole and I were close for like a year, and then after I left, he became my mom's buddy, and they were close. And again, he passed away of old age several years ago, but he had a good life too. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any pets now. I don't really want any pets right now. I've had some very nice, well-meaning people reach out to me, like after my cat died, and said, "Oh, my thoughts are with you. I hope that you feel better, and I hope that you're able to adopt another cat soon." And that's a nice, yeah, it's a nice thought, and it's intended, kindly, I think, but I don't plan on getting another pet anytime soon, for a variety of reasons. But the pets I have had in my life have been wonderful, have been absolutely wonderful. I've been very, very lucky in terms of the cats and the cat and the dog that I have had throughout my life. And I mean, I'll probably have another pet at some point, but not anytime soon. And I'm not like looking for one right now. But yeah, my cat and my dog, Audie, my cat, and Star, my dog. Those are my pets. I love them a whole bunch. Well, that is it for the patron and member question. So I will turn my attention now to the live chat and see what everybody has been talking about. And I see a super chat from John Burns. And have I missed any other super chats? I missed one from Holiday Arnett. Thank you very much for the super chat. Holiday says, "Hey Steve, happy holidays. Thank you for all the work you put into your videos. I always look forward to seeing when I get notified." Well, thank you very much. That's really sweet. And thank you for your generosity, and thank you for your nice thoughts. And then here's one from John Burns, who says, "Isaac in the Orville, Mark Jackson's acting was..." Unsure who I've asked this question to, but what about Thomas F. Wilson as Perry White / Daily Bugle? You mean Perry White, J. Jonah Jameson? I can see that. Oasis, that's fine. It wasn't a poopy question. It's my fault more than yours. 25 AD with a super chat. 14 million years ago, aliens built a pyramid-shaped colony ship to escape a dying planet, but the crew were killed by a gamma ray burst. Eventually, the ship emergency lands on our moon. Thoughts? Works for me. I think that's a good one. I think that's a good explanation. Now, someone else in the chat said, "What about Stuff?" D-Chan87. What happened to Stuffy? Well, I guess now is a good time as any. I was going to talk with the chat for a little bit, but since it's been brought up, Kemp Chalmers, you're right. A baby is basically a pet. Since somebody brought it up, I will. Oh, and Isaiah Taylor with a super chat. "The WoW signal is still unknown and it's one of my favorite space mysteries." Well, there you go. I guess I spoke out of turn when I said it was definitely not alien. But anyway, So, as I mentioned on Twitter, and as I mentioned last time, I'm going to try for the next several, at least for the next several Ask Away streams, to show a new Stuffy short. And these are YouTube shorts. They're only going to be about a minute long. So like they're super short, but it's a little scene with myself and Stuffy. And you all will get to watch it coming up here in a few seconds live on the stream in full frame. And then it will go up on YouTube as a standalone short in a square format tomorrow. But you'll get to see it tonight on this show, actually in just a few seconds. So please turn your full attention to the screen and enjoy the brand new Stuffy and Friends short that I'm about to show you right now. And then, John, I'll get back to your super chat after that. Okay, here we go. Brand new Stuffy and Friends short.
Did you see this tweet about the students at a religious college who couldn't think of any differences between Catholics and Baptists?
I did see that. It's too bad no one ever told them how you can really tell the difference.
It's the baptism thing, right? Catholics sprinkle and Baptists dunk.
Well, yes, but unless you happen to be at a baptism, you can't tell that just by looking.
Is it the clothes? Catholics wear black with the tab collars and Baptists just dress like ordinary racist white people?
That's only the clergy.
Baptists all have nipple piercings.
I don't think so.
The Catholic Church has a rigid ecclesiastical structure, starting at the top with the Pope and going all the way down to the local parish priests, while the Baptists are largely decentralized and non-hierarchical?
Again, you can't really tell that just by looking at someone.
Well then what? What is it, Stuffy?
It's that Catholics actually talk to each other when they see each other at the liquor store.
Kind of a weak punchline after all that.
I'll try to tighten it up.
So there you go. Hope everybody enjoyed that. I actually like that's of the Stuffy shorts that I have banked for the next several weeks to do this. That's one of my favorites. So I hope you like that. Carlisle, yes, I have thought of putting them on TikTok. I thought of it just yesterday. I thought, because I think I have a TikTok account. I've just never put anything on it. I could put the Stuffy shorts on there. Yeah, I have thought about it. Maybe I'll do that at some point if I remember. Oh, and yes, John Burns. Yes, Thomas F. Wilson was Biff in Back to the Future. He might be a good Perry. I can kind of see that. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't. It's not a choice I would have thought of on my own. But yeah, I think that I can kind of see Thomas F. Wilson as Perry. And yeah, that the joke in that short is something that I heard years and years and years ago. And I thought, that I bet I could work that into a Stuffy short. Most of these Stuffy shorts that I'm going to be showing you over the next several weeks on Ask Away, I wrote more or less around the same time. And it was one of them was the Catholics and Baptists. How can you tell the difference between a Catholic and a Baptist? And I think there was like a tweet where there had been some kind of there had been some kind of a poll, that I was referencing at the beginning, and that kind of set me off on it. And I was like, the Catholics and Baptist jokes. How do you tell the difference between a Catholic or what's the difference between Catholics and Baptists? Catholics talk to each other when they see each other in the liquor store. And I love that joke. I love that joke a lot. Darylette says, are there any tunes considered Christmas songs when you first heard them you didn't think they were Christmas songs? I think my favorite things was Till Herb Albert's cover. Not really. I mean, there are Christmas songs. There are really popular Christmas songs that I don't really get why they're popular. Like The Little Drummer Boy. What is the appeal of that song exactly? Yeah, I'll tell you what's a good one for me, the Eyes Wide Shut soundtrack. Most people don't associate that with Christmas, but Eyes Wide Shut is a Christmas movie. So the Eyes Wide Shut soundtrack is very near and dear to my heart. It's that to me, that's Christmas music. Oh, Philip, I have not watched Glass Onion yet. No, that is on my to watch list for this weekend for sure. Because it's out on Netflix now. I'm definitely going to watch it because I loved Knives Out. Lord Cyberram says, hi, Steve. Omar Phoenix did a video where we get drawn into drama and toxic behavior after help he can see. If they say you're gay, he laughs it off and gets on with his day. Okay. I'm sorry. I have no idea what any of that means. The Rockin' Donkey with a super chat. Tell us something we don't know about Steve Johnson from the Ensign's log. What's something that you don't know about Steve Johnson from the Ensign's log? He has a scar on his face right here. Oh, and Dana says, I want to wrap the little presents I've got for my daughter's stocking. I'm really tired and I'm working tomorrow. She loves unwrapping stuff, though. How much will I regret it if I don't? You will regret it a lot, probably. If I were in your place, I would not regret it that much because I'd just be like, whatever. But you would probably regret it. So I think you should do it. I think you should do it before you go to bed. Kemp Chalmers with a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, Merry Christmas, motherfucker. In Samuel L. Jackson's voice. Yes. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you too. Well, Kane 20C, Christopher Lee has a rad version. Well, it's Christopher Lee. See, I feel like that's not the song. That's the performer. You know what I'm saying? Like Bruce Springsteen has an awesome version of Merry Christmas, Baby. I mean, there's nothing really all that special about that song, but when Bruce Springsteen belts it out, you fucking sit up and pay attention. Isaiah Taylor, more about the WOW signal. The signal originated in Sagittarius 200 light years away, meaning that if it was aliens, it was sent sometime at the end of the 1600s. Now, that is a cool thought. That is a very cool thought. Oh, Tasby 12. The appeal of the little drummer boy is that Jesus smiled at him. Pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. I see. I never got that. But yeah, that's the payoff. The little drummer boy, right? He doesn't have a gift. And honestly, it's a little presumptuous of him to expect that he would have a gift because he's just a kid with a drum. But he's like, okay, I know what I'll give him. I'll play a drum. I'll play on the drum for him. So he does some fucking rat-a-tat-tat, or excuse me, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. And the baby Jesus is the baby Jesus that was just born like 10 minutes ago smiles at him. So, ooh, congratulations. Is Kemp Steve Johnson or Steve's Johnson? Oh, Steve Johnson. We've heard quite enough about Johnson's Johnson on the show, I do believe. Some random geek says, I've seen an old comedy movie recently where you find the movie is... Have you seen an old comedy movie recently where you find the movie as funny as you used to? I'm watching Life of Brian and forget about the ableism in the movie. Well, we just watched The General for late seating not that long ago, and it holds up. But I mean, I'm a Buster Keaton super fan, so of course The General was going to hold up. I mean, Airplane came out the year I was born. Every time I watch Airplane, it absolutely fucking kills me. Like, I think it's still one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. But I understand the phenomenon you're describing. Like, it does suck when you watch, whether it's a movie or a TV show or whatever, and you do, and with like modern eyes, you see it and you're like, oh, fuck. You know, whether it's ableism or sexism or homophobia or whatever, like that does happen a lot. We're like, oh shit, I wish they hadn't said that. You know, I mean, that has happened to me before and it sucks. Brad Freeman says, I've had the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special soundtrack on loop recently. The 97s are a welcome discovery. Yeah. And not just the soundtrack. That's a great special. That's a great show. I loved the Guardians holiday special. I thought that was fantastic. 255 AD says, I once toured the church in the next town over from me. They told me the font was carved during the Crusades. Your country is so young. Yeah, a lot of Europeans say that about the United States. It's not that our country is young. It's that when the European colonists got here, we got rid of all the people that had the centuries of history and culture built up. We kind of swept the slate clean. So, you know. Daryl Letts, I was just wondering to myself if there was any villain role in Batman, Superman, etc. that Samuel L. Jackson would fit. That's an interesting question. I will be interested to hear anybody in the chat say that. Dave G. Sound, Merry Christmas, Steve. Thank you for the great content. Well, thank you very much, Dave. Merry Christmas to you, too. Yes, Yannick, exactly. The beautiful Eyes Wide Shut Christmas music that plays when Tom Cruise is being followed in the street. Exactly. That piano sting. That ding. Oh, I saw Eyes Wide Shut. I saw Eyes Wide Shut in the theater 5 times in 1999. Every single time. And it happens 3 or 4 times just in the movie. So all the times it happens in the movie, plus the 5 times I saw it in the theater. And the last few times I saw it in the theater, I was like the only one in the theater because it was not a super popular movie. Every time that big sharp note from that Giorgio Ligeti piece, that piano piece, I think it was Giorgio Ligeti, or maybe that was another piece. But anyway, the piano piece, the dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And it builds up to this one incredibly sharp, isolated note. And it just, every time, it just stabbed me in the chest. And I would jump when I heard it because I never quite knew when it was coming because there's a long silence before it hits. And fuck. Some of my most treasured movie-going experiences. Yes, Daryl, Bruce's cover of Springsteen's Santa Claus is Coming to Town is great. Absolutely. Kane 20C, Deathmatch, Scrooge Edition, George C. Scott versus Michael. George C. Scott. I'm going to make some enemies here tonight. I like The Muppets Christmas Carol, and that's about as far as I'm going to go with it. I like The Muppets Christmas Carol. When people say, oh, The Muppets Christmas Carol is the best movie of A Christmas Carol, I think, okay. Oh, did my lights just go out? My lights just went out. Not sure why that happened. Whatever. But yeah, so, George C. Scott. My favorite Scrooge is Alastair Sim. My favorite Scrooge is neither George C. Scott nor Michael Caine, but Alastair Sim. Super chat from 255 AD, a Trek show about one of the slower warp ships of the early 2100s, like so they couldn't go to a new planet every episode. Is that a better answer than warp show? Yeah, I mean, it would depend on what the rest of the show was, right? Like Trek shows set in 2100s is not really a premise for a show, but I mean, there's no reason why a show set during that time period couldn't be great. Jacob Monroe, what's your favorite Buster Keaton movie? Sherlock Jr., which is also my favorite movie, period. Oh, yes, John 73, John, Top Secret, I also love. Top Secret. Actually, I've watched Top Secret more recently than I've watched Airplane. I saw I think Top Secret was on HBO Max, and I happened across it, and I was like, oh, I got to watch it, because it's been years since I've seen it. Top Secret is hilarious. D-Chan 87, Patrick Swayze, Christmas is underrated. That is, you know what? I listened to that song during Christmas. Patrick Swayze Christmas is a classic. Crow T Robot is truly a songsmith. Let's have a Patrick Swayze Christmas this year. I mean, come on. How can you not love that? And it can be the craziest. It can be the haziest. It can be the Swayziest Christmas of them all. La 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 la. Come on, man. Isaiah with the super chat. The fact that a random stranger helped me with a car is proof why conservatism doesn't work. Boy, you ain't kidding. I saw another one just. Oh, Kane 20C, Samuel L. Jackson as Hugo Strange. Now that yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Sequence 77 says, do you tend to binge watch shows or do you space episodes out? Also, do you think binge watching has changed how people perceive storylines? if I have time, I will watch. I won't go. I usually don't go on like a day long binge. Like if I have time, I can watch 2 or 3 episodes in a row, if they're available. But I don't like watch. I don't sit down and just watch an entire show, all day. Um, so I'll do little mini binges, you know. Um, and yes, I do think it's changed how people perceive storylines. Yeah, I think it, especially if you're watching an older show that was written with the idea that you would be watching one episode a week. I do think it changes how people perceive them. I don't think it covers up for as much as people say it does, though, because I mean, almost every single time I have complained about a streaming series having lousy pacing, there's always somebody who responds by saying, well, if you wait till all the episodes are out and then you binge it at once, it doesn't make a difference. Oh, yes, it does. If you have a story that you take 3 episodes to tell and it only needs 1 episode, it doesn't matter whether I'm watching those 3 episodes one after the other on the same day, or I'm watching them one a week for 3 weeks. A badly paced story is a badly paced story. Sorry. Binge watching doesn't help. Let me see. Carlisle, the cinephile, says with a super chat, thank you very much, Carlisle, says, have you seen the new animated version or Christmas Carol that's a musical and has a depiction of Scrooge that everyone is simping over? No, I have not seen that. I don't know if I've even heard about that. No, I have not seen that. And by the way, a couple people are mentioning Patrick Stewart's Scrooge. I do think that's a good one. I don't think it's like best ever or anything. It does some interesting things that a lot of more recent modern Christmas Carol live action adaptations don't do. I like it. It kind of leans into the darkness a little more. But I will say, as far as Patrick Stewart and Patrick Stewart's audiobook of A Christmas Carol, which is basically an audio version of his one-man show performance, is one of my favorite versions of A Christmas Carol ever. That is something that I listen to every Christmas without fail. I will probably listen to it at some point tomorrow. And it's Patrick Stewart reading A Christmas Carol and performing all of the parts and doing different voices and stuff. And it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite things. So, and I like that way better than Patrick Stewart's movie of A Christmas Carol. But like I said, the movie is also good. John Burns says, when Europeans first arrived in the Caribbean, they swept the slate clean. Red people were swept away for more valuable black people. What, too soon? No, I feel like we should probably talk about that more often. Oh, thank you, Dana. Dana says, I have a great singing voice. Will you sing the Voltron theme for us? I don't remember the Voltron theme. So you'll be spared for that. Some random gig. Yeah, Scrooged is great. I like Scrooged a lot. Yeah. 205 AD says, like my idea would be every season they arrive in a new star system and have to deal with a new plot. I think that's good. That's kind of similar to my pitch that I had for a Star Trek series that I said for my part of the Trek culture video that I contributed to, where the question was, what Star Trek show would you like to see made? And mine was basically literally do Wagon Train to the Stars, where every season is about a trip from some Federation hub to a distant colony, and the season takes place during the trip out to the colony, and every season is a different trip. So at the end of season 1, they reach the colony they've been trying to get to, and that wraps up. And then season 2 begins as they start a new trip with a new group of colonists, maybe to another colony or maybe to the same colony, but it's a different trip with different people. Like, so it kind of, the show sort of resets every season. So yeah. And 255 AD also says, can you empathize with religious people? I can be sympathetic and polite to them, but believing a thing you're consciously aware has no evidence isn't something I can really imagine. Well, I empathize with them about certain things. I don't really empathize with them about their religious beliefs. I think they have the right to believe whatever they want, and I don't think they should be persecuted for believing anything like that. But at the same time, I don't think they should be able to use those beliefs to impose their values on other people through force of law or any other kind of force. So, but yeah, I have empathy. The fact that they are religious believers doesn't prevent me from empathizing with them. But if they do shitty things in the name of those beliefs, then fuck them. But, I believe in freedom of belief and freedom of conscience. Lord Cyberram, hang on, there's a couple of messages here I missed here. Kurok 2011 says, talk about late to one of my favorite parties. Merry Christmas, Steve. This week has been chaotic. That being said, that whole Cisco taking 3 years to be promoted, I don't think it's as racist as I thought. Well, maybe not. Oh, and Kemp Chalmers didn't Data play Scrooge in the holodeck. Yes, he did for the Jacob Marley scene, for part of the Jacob Marley scene, didn't he? Lord Cyberram says, what's your opinion on Masters of the Universe Revelations? Fans hate or love it. I just watched and enjoyed bits. I didn't like it. I watched the first season or half season or whatever the first group of episodes were that came out. I really didn't like it. I really didn't like the first episode. I thought the first episode was so full of fucking like Easter eggs and references and just, basically it felt like Kevin Smith trying to prove to the viewers that he had watched the old show. And I was just like, fuck, just stop. So I haven't watched any more of it. I think they've released new episodes since that first season or that first collection, but I haven't. It's not my thing. I didn't like it. I also watched the new one, like the kids show, I think that one's called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I didn't even make it through the first episode of that. And it's not even that it was necessarily bad. It was just so emphatically not for me that I was just like, all right, I don't, I don't need to watch the rest of this. Carlisle says, I'm honestly surprised by how much I like the version with Jim Carrey as Scrooge. I think I've seen that once. It didn't really leave much of an impression. Oh, Jacob Monroe. Fuck, marry, kill. Jack Kemp, Bob Dole, Paul Ryan. Fuck Jack Kemp, marry Bob Dole, kill Paul Ryan. That was easy. Oh, Sangel, I hadn't watched Trek Culture's video yet, but when I saw that title, I did think of Steve. Little did I know. Well, there you go. Yes, I am in it. 255 AD says, the other day on a podcast, Sophia from Mars said on a podcast, I don't debate liberals or fascists for the same reason I don't debate flat earthers. Thoughts on that statement as a lib? Well, I mean, Achman 211, welcome to the $5 a month club. Thank you very much. I mean, obviously I would take, as a liberal, I would take exception to being grouped in with fascists and flat earthers, but I have no objection with anybody saying that they don't debate people of a certain mindset. You know what I mean? Like, you're not entitled to a debate with anybody, for anything. And if the person who said that has values and beliefs that they feel are so far apart from what they perceive liberal values to be, that they don't think that there's any point in having a debate about it, then that's fine. And I can relate to that because there are belief systems and ideologies that I feel the same way about, so I think that's a completely reasonable position to have. Serena Geek, do I want to debate with you? Not really. Like, not really. Not like, not about like government stuff. Like the older I get and the more time I spend online and seeing other people fight about stuff, the less interested I am in most debates. It just doesn't interest me. Life's too short. I was online yesterday or the day before, and I saw people on Twitter, and they were arguing about young Earth creationism. And I thought, there's people online arguing about young Earth creation. Like there are people who accept the actual scientific consensus arguing with religious extremists, with young Earth creationists. And it's fucking 2022. Like, are we still doing this? And I know like every show is somebody's first show. Like I know that there are still people who maybe haven't seen this debate before and I guess have, you know, something else. It's fresher to them than it is to me, but it's like, I can't imagine wasting a single second of my day arguing with a young Earth creationist. You know, like I'm just so done with that whole fucking thing. Michael Alber says, nice job on the data and emotions video essay. Well, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. I thought that one turned out pretty well too. Kurek 2011 with a super chat. So I used to hate the fact that Cisco didn't start out as a captain, but given how the emissary is about him getting over where he exists, that may stagnate his career. Your thoughts? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I think the actual explanation that they give in the What We Left Behind documentary is that they originally envisioned Cisco as a younger character, and then after Avery Brooks was cast, the writers wanted to just make him a captain, but for some reason the producers said no, or the studio said no, he's a commander, like, you know. But yeah, your idea is good too, you know. Like it's not like he was, you know, he wasn't vigorously pursuing a promotion. I mean, he was the commander of a space station. Why would they have promoted him? Yannick Muller says, have you ever considered to make Stuffy and Friends move? Is there stillness and aesthetic or more of a technical choice? It started out as a technical choice, but now it's an aesthetic choice. I wouldn't have them move even if I could. No, I think the fact that they don't move is essential to the show. So no, I would never want to have them move. No. Radical Bacon. I just woke up. What I miss. Most of the show, my background lights went out for some reason. I think maybe if I wiggle the extension cord. There we go. I think my extension cord is about to give up the ghost on me. So I just had to wiggle the extension cord and they came back on. But yeah, that's about it. That's about what you missed. Dana asked me to sing the Voltron song, but I politely declined because I don't remember the lyrics. Yes, I don't love A Muppet Christmas Carol. So sorry if that means we can't be friends anymore. I like the Alastair Sim version better. Yeah. It's not that I don't like A Muppet Christmas Carol. I think it's fine. I find it a little overpraised. That's all. Like when someone says, I think The Muppet Christmas Carol is the best movie of A Christmas Carol, I want to condescendingly pat their head and go, that's nice. Like that's really, but it's fine. Like it's a good movie. But and this is coming from someone who I love the Muppets. Muppets Christmas Carol is okay. It's better than Muppet Treasure Island. Rock and Donkey, I need to watch Technology Connections episode on extension cords. Like that's something I need to do. No, there's nothing to worry about. You don't need to worry about the extension cord. Actually, I've had it for many years and it probably is starting to wear out. I should replace it, so I should probably just get a new one. But it's fine. It's not like throwing sparks or anything. I think it's probably just because I wrap it up before I put it away and it's probably just got like a short in it or something. It's fine. Oh, Achman211 says, no question, but your videos have been keeping me sane while out delivering. Thanks. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. And thanks for saying that. I'm glad that my videos have been of use to you. That means a lot. 255 AD, I'm going to bed. Geek will never convince Steve. Well, don't be that way about it. I mean, you're right, but don't be that way about it. Thank you for the super chat as always. Kirak2011 with a super chat says, oh, the actor that plays the changeling in the last DS9 watch you guys did also plays the Cardassian that believes Kira is his daughter. What a great actor. Also, Steve, check out that Henry Winkler Christmas Carol. Loved it. I may have seen the Henry Winkler Christmas Carol a long time ago. But yes, I saw that when I looked him up, when I was looking up the NYPD Blue episodes that he was in, I saw that, yeah, it's the same actor that plays Tekeni Gamor is the Cardassian character. And yeah, he's a good actor. He's a really good actor. Michael Alber, any reason why you didn't include the Offspring episode in your data video? It would seem like the desire to be a parent might qualify as an emotion. It was just a matter of the video was getting close to 40 minutes long, and I had other examples that I wanted to cite that I felt like were, more relevant. But I mean, yeah, the Offspring is a great episode, and it is certainly relevant to the topic for sure. I have a feeling I'll probably talk about it when I address some of the comments in the next comment response video, because yeah, I mean, the Offspring is certainly an episode that warrants consideration when talking about data and emotions. Yeah. Lord Cyber Ram, Steve, are you Sith or Jedi or Gray? Jedi, light and dark side. I'm Gray Jedi. Let's just say Jedi. Because like there's always at least two Siths, right? I'd rather just be by myself. Super chat for Carlisle the Cinephile. If you could do a remake of a movie and replace all but one of the cast with Muppets, which movie would you choose and who would play who? Well, I saw this going around on Twitter earlier this week, and my first answer was Roadhouse. And the human that you keep, of course, is Swayze. But, now that I've mentioned it, I feel like we could do Muppets Eyes Wide Shut. And the human character from Eyes Wide Shut that you keep, naturally, Sidney Pollack. D-Chan87, what's the most underrated Superman story I've read? What's a good underrated Superman story? I don't know about underrated, but I remember there was a storyline in the Superman comics back in the early 90s. I barely remember it, but it was Robin, Tim Drake, comes to Gotham City and teams up with Superman, and I think they're fighting vampires. Like, I don't know. I I barely remember it, but I remember the details of it. I'm pretty sure I'm not imagining it. There is a storyline in the Superman comics from the early 90s where Tim teams up with Superman and they are fighting vampires. Kane 20C, you're going to rip out a Muppet's throat? Well, I'm not. Patrick Swayze would. But yeah, absolutely. Azalea, that's a good one. Muppet Iron Man, where the one human is Pepper. I can get behind that. Radical Bacon, when Muppets go out on dates, do they get felt up? Well, the question is, do they get felt up where? Oh, Philip, do Point Break with Keanu, but Swayze's character is a Muppet Patrick Swayze. Yes, indeed. Yeah, Kirak, Don does look like Patrick, but he doesn't have the same magic, does he? It's just not quite the same. Michael asks, in Muppet Eyes Wide Shut, would you have Gonzo or Kermit as the Tom Cruise character? Well, it's got to be Kermit so that Miss Piggy can be Nicole Kidman. you know, that's got to be how it works. Kermit is the Tom Cruise. Kermit is Bill, and Miss Piggy is Alice. And like I said, the one human character is oh, I can't remember his name now, but Sidney Pollack's character from Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah. Victor. Yeah. Which couldn't happen now, unfortunately, because Sidney Pollack is dead, but in the realm of fantasy. Lord Cyberram, Steve, big question in the Transformers movie 86. Who killed Optimus Prime? Many blame a rash hot rod. Rodimus Primal says Megatron, but all are to blame. Optimus for his honor, Hot Rod, and evil Megatron. No, I think it was Megatron, wasn't it? I could never blame Hot Rod. I love Hot Rod. I was one of the few people who actually kind of dug Rodimus Prime. I thought Rodimus Prime was a cool character. I was not like, waiting for Optimus to come back. Not that I loved Optimus Prime. When I was a kid watching Transformers, obviously I loved Optimus Prime. But when they killed him off and Rodimus took over, I was like, okay, I can dig this. I like Rodimus Prime. Cornet theory, Muppet TNG, where the only human is Data. Oh, I like that. That's true, Carlisle. We can't do any Swayze Muppet movies because, actually, Brad, that gives me an idea. Gonzo can direct or Gonzo can narrate it as Charles Dickens. Yeah. So anyway, we're a few minutes before the hour, so I'm going to start wrapping things up here. So if you have any final questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will come back to the chat in just a minute right before we close up shop. But also don't forget, Dana mentioned it earlier, but Dana is not streaming tomorrow. It probably wouldn't be streaming tomorrow anyway because it's New Year's Eve, but Dana will be streaming on her channel next Friday, a week from tonight, for the next Festive Friday files. So, and I will remind you about that on Wednesday when we do Trek Reluctantly, but just as a programming note, normally I would plug the Saturday 6, but Dana's not doing the Saturday 6. She's doing the Festive Friday files next Friday. So if you enjoy my YouTube work, don't forget you can support my channel and support me as I continue to make more videos by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, or becoming a channel member by clicking the join button right down there, I think, over down there somewhere. Down below on the YouTube page, click the join button. Either way, it really helps me out. And one of the benefits that you get as either a patron or a member is you get to submit questions ahead of time for Ask Away. So if you enjoy asking questions on Ask Away, or if you just enjoy my YouTube videos and you want to help me keep making them and they mean something to you and it's not going to take food off your table to throw a few bucks my way every month, please become a patron, become a member. I would really, really super appreciate it. Also, don't forget the charity links, charitylinks.page down below in the video description, and some of the links that Geek has also been sharing in the live chat. Thank you very much. Some Random Geek also maintains the charity links document, so you can go there and check out some people who need a helping hand. And if you have some money to spare and you want to help out somebody in need, the charity links page or some of the links that Geek is directly putting into the chat right now would be fantastic choices to help out. Also, don't forget, if you enjoy my YouTube work, I'm also a co-host on a couple of really awesome podcasts that are a part of the Lemmy Listen family of podcasts, and the links to them both are in the description as well. There is Late Seating, the movie review podcast where Jason Harding and I take a look at a classic movie and see whether it deserves its reputation, be it good or bad. And the new episode of Late Seating, our Christmas episode, is out, and it is once again our Christmas commentary track where you watch the movie with us. And the Christmas movie that Jason and I are watching together this time around is Elf, the Will Ferrell movie that a lot of people like now. So we watched Elf, and you can watch it with us. Find your copy of Elf and play along as you listen to our show, and it'll be like a commentary track. It'll be just like you're watching it with me and Jason. Won't that be nice? Let's watch Elf together. And also, the other podcast is the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek comedy podcast that I am on alongside Jason and our very own Dana Cole, who is still in the chat, where we play characters serving aboard a certain Federation starship as it carries out its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, yada, 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 all that stuff I said I really liked before. If you like the Star Trek stuff that I do on this channel, and especially if you like funny Star Trek stuff, comedy Star Trek stuff, I think you'll really, really dig the Ensign's Log. And that is linked in the description as well. So check out the Ensign's Log. That is it. Let me take one last look at the live chat and see what everybody has to say here before I turn off the lights, like on purpose this time. Bona Saturnalia to all. Thank you, Brad. And yes, Rockin' Donkey. Everybody Wang Chung tonight. Well, Creation Tribe, you totally missed it, but that's okay. You can go back and watch it from the beginning because it's archived, buddy. Yes, Cornet Theory, Bob Newhart, the best part of Elf. Bob Newhart, just being Bob Newhart, is by far the best part of Elf. Kirek 2011, isn't the Star Wars Holiday Special better than Elf? That is a little harsh. I'll tell you what, though, I know which one I would rather watch, and it's the Star Wars Holiday Special. Jonathan Stewart says, not sure if you've seen, but Trek Culture deepfaked you into their $250,000 sub celebration video, trying to get some more views off your fame. Seriously, that was a pleasure to see you. Well, I'm very glad you liked it. I was flattered to be asked. They have some more videos coming out in the coming days and weeks to celebrate the $250,000, or I keep saying dollar, 250,000 subscriber milestone. And I'm in some of those too. So hopefully you will enjoy seeing me on Trek Culture in a few more videos coming up in the near future. But I'm really cool. I'm really glad that you liked it. It was cool to be asked to participate because I really like the gang at Trek Culture. And yeah, Andrea, Ed Asner is a good Santa in Elf as well. It's not that I don't like Elf. Elf is fine. Like, you'll hear my commentary about it. Like, it's not like I think it's a bad movie, but it's like, oh, okay, it's fine. I don't really get why we're treating it like a classic now, because I don't think it is. But it's fine, Anyway, Granny Goodness says Santa is very confusing. Well, it's the voice. You close your eyes and it's really confusing. Anyway, that's it, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for your generosity with the super chats and everything. Thank you for the awesome questions. Those of you who are patrons and members, thank you for being those things. It really, really makes a difference in my life. Happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate. If you celebrate Christmas, have a wonderful Christmas this weekend. Have a happy New Year. And I will see you next month and next year for the next Ask Away. So happy New Year, Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Take care. Bundle up. Take care of the cold if you're affected by the cold snap. And that's it. Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot.